Hello and welcome to The Download from Wisewoman and Wordsmith, where insight meets inspiration. A space for creatives, dreamers and visionaries ready to spark new ideas, ignite purpose and reimagine possibilities. Here we share downloads of wisdom, stories and strategies to help you thrive in your creative journey. I'm your host, Jill Marshall. Tune in, connect and let the magic unfold.
Show you tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to The Download, where creativity, insight and inner wisdom come together to play, along with, sometimes, a little bit of mischief. I'm your host, Jill Marshall, and today we're flipping the serious script. Last episode, we danced in the shadows, literally. We talked about those shadow parts of ourselves that we hide, bury, or pretend don't exist. And, wow, honestly, your messages, your responses, the way it seemed to resonate, I felt that deeply. So thank you if you got back to me following that episode. But today, we're inviting in a different energy. Today is about creative mischief. The kind of mischief that isn't destructive, but constructive. The kind that says, what if I coloured outside the lines, just a little bit? I did this just last week with, of all things, a LinkedIn post. It was Friday afternoon, I was about to switch off for the weekend, and there had been something just a little triggering about the number of boring, pointless posts I'd just read on LinkedIn that had been created in the new storytelling style of one phrase per line, many phrases, all double-spaced and endlessly long. For no good reason other than a little bedevilment, I wrote a long post about nothing at all, other than it being a long post. I attached an image to it about the point of long posts and I sent it out into the world. A few people, mainly my friends, reacted positively, and a lot of people haven't, perhaps because they don't get it. Why would I do that? Surely I was really making a serious point. And I wasn't. I was playing. It was creative mischief. Because here's something we often forget. Play is fundamentally creative, and creativity is how we solve problems, how we adapt, how we stay alive inside. But for so many of us, that ability to play has been trained out of us. So when did we stop playing? Most of us were probably natural mischief makers as kids. We daydreamed, we made messes, we asked why. We talked to ourselves, and sometimes to trees or toys or invisible friends. I have the very great joy of this whenever I play with my grandson who's 7. His imagination is immense, and I'm very happy to go along with it, being a baby whose crying voice has been sent to a cuddly toy, or one of the hapless gang of nanas who stumble into his supervillain lair. I'm especially happy to join in because, well, firstly, it's how my brain works as well, and secondly, I know that it won't be too long before the world at large will start to curtail these playful, imaginative qualities. And what will the world say? It'll say, stop daydreaming, focus, grow up, don't answer back, you're being silly, or get serious. Remember this from when we were kids? We got stars for sitting still, not for imagining a unicorn in the maths book. So little by little, play got replaced with performance. Mischief got swapped for manners, and we internalise this idea that play is childish, it's frivolous, it's a waste of time. But here's the truth. Play is not the opposite of work. Play is often where the work starts, where your imagination stretches, where risk feels safe, where magic lives. If we never learn to unhook from the need to get it right, we can't access the real creative gold. So, what do I mean by creative mischief? Well, it's that cheeky whisper that says, why not? It's following the urge to try something stupid, which turns out to be not stupid at all. It's experimenting, detouring, rule-bending, and letting joy lead the way. It's the urge to follow the absurd and to poke the serious with a stick and see what dances. Take Douglas Adams, for instance, author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He famously said he loved deadlines, especially the whooshing noise they made as they flew by. His books are full of creative mischief. Sentient mattresses, depressed robots, poetry used as a weapon. He often began writing by typing total nonsense to get past the internal critic. Gibberish wasn't a distraction. Far from it, it was a doorway. Or Mike Milligan, who once said, "All I ask is the chance to prove that money can't make me happy." As one of the original goons, his surreal humour paved the way for generations of creatives to be gloriously ridiculous. During his songwriting phases, David Bowie used a technique called the cut-up method, where he literally cut sentences out of newspapers and rearranged them to create new lyrics. He called it artistic mischief, and it led to some of his most surreal and iconic lines. And then there's one of my personal favourites, Roald Dahl, who took mischievous delight in bending language, creating words like whiz-popping and snozcumber. His work is full of rule-breaking kids, upside-down authority figures, and just enough danger to feel deliciously subversive. In fact, I created my own bit of mischief and had a truly magical moment in the Roald Dahl Museum in Great Missenden, UK. Now, I may have mentioned this before, but as I'm feeling a bit cheeky, here we go again. In the midst of the Jane Blonde series being published, I visited the Roald Dahl Museum with my family and found it to be the most inspirational and wonderful place, with his yellow legal paper pinned to the walls with lists of these incredible words on them: snozcumbers, vermicious knids. Now, it's legend that Dahl wrote in his shed, in a tatty old chair with foam carved out of the back to make it extra comfortable, with a lap table made from corrugated cardboard on which he'd lay out those yellow legal pads and write his incredible stories. In one of the inner rooms in the museum, I was overjoyed to find that actual chair available for visitors to sit in. At least, I think it was. I certainly sat in it anyway, channeling Roald. Troops of school kids swarmed around, trying to get a look at, or hopefully a seat, on the inspirational chair, but they had to wait a while as I soaked up dullness on the carved-out cushions. When I couldn't in all conscience sit there any longer, I finished going around the museum and went into the gift shop, where I found, if possible, an even more magical gift. For there, among the books lining the shelves that included mainly Roald Dahl's own books and the latest Harry Potters, sat some cover-out, shiny copies of my own books. It stands out for me as one of the loveliest moments of my career. I created mischief in Roald Dahl's museum and was rewarded with a lineup of books I could only have dreamed of when I was reading James and the Giant Peach or Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator at the age of 10, there on the shelf in Dahl's own museum. Charlie Bucket, Harry Potter, and Jane Blonde. But it's not just in the arts that creative mischief and playfulness can be applied. IDEO, the design company, once had a project to redesign a toothbrush for kids. Now, instead of sitting in meetings, the designers literally crawled around on their knees in the bathroom, trying to see the world at kid level. They discovered the handles needed to be fatter for small hands, and that playful approach became industry standard. See, play isn't unprofessional. It's deeply intelligent. It's disruptive in the best way. And it's often joyful. Recently, I attended a wonderful event called Pub Choir, where over 2,000 mostly strangers gathered together in a theatre for 3 hours to sing one song in 3-part harmony. We followed our wonderful creator/comedian/musician conductor who kept us all enthralled for the whole evening as she led us through 80 slides with our singing parts on them. Imagine that in a board meeting. 80 slides. It would soon become a BORED meeting. But not this one. We laughed, we sighed, we sounded terrible and clapped anyway. Some of us got up and moved seats because we were in the wrong section. And then we sang our little hearts out in a completely wonderful concoction of a song. We just played, led by the chief mischief maker who'd used her creative and technical brilliance to invent and lead it all. It was joyful and transporting in the extreme. Nothing silly about it in the end. Just a flexing of some inspired, creative muscle. Because if creativity is a muscle, mischief is the warm-up. We don't often think about creative energy as something that needs activating, like stretching before a run, but it absolutely does. And that activation doesn't always look like sitting down cross-legged with a serious face and lighting a beautiful candle next to your laptop. Sometimes it looks like writing a poem in a made-up language, talking to your cat in the voice of a Jane Austen character, drawing moustaches on your to-do list, or doodling with your non-dominant hand, just because. And why does that matter? Because what you're doing there is reawakening the parts of your brain and your being that are curious, rebellious, and delightfully unconcerned with doing things right. That, my friends, is the mischief muscle. And when we flex it, we give ourselves permission to play. As children, we lived in that state. We played, we invented, we tried weird things for the joy of it. But as adults, we're trained out of that, taught that only serious effort leads to real results, that we must sit still, stay focused, and grow up. But in truth, seriousness might help us execute, but mischief helps us imagine. And it's often the imagination in the silly and the sideways where the real breakthroughs live. Witness the story of Carey Mullis, the Nobel Prize-winning biochemist who invented PCR, the technique that underpins everything from forensic science to rapid COVID tests. Where did this world-changing idea come to him? In the lab or at a conference? No, while daydreaming alone on a moonlit drive along the California coast. His mind had been chewing on the problem for weeks, but the moment of connection came only when he stopped trying to be clever and just let his thoughts wander. Or how about Yoshiro Nakamatsu, also known as Dr. Nakamatsu, an eccentric Japanese inventor with over 3,000 patents to his name, more than Edison. He claimed that his best ideas came while holding his breath underwater, or sitting in a room he'd built entirely out of gold to block radio waves and stimulate his brain. His inventions included a precursor to the floppy disk, which IBM eventually adopted. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment you dive into a gold-plated bath, or deprive yourself of oxygen, or even prevent small children from sitting in Roald Dahl's chair. But I am saying that some of the most powerful innovations in history have come from moments of creative play, from mischievous thinking, from minds that were willing to be silly, surreal, or rebellious, even for a moment. So, the next time you feel stuck, creatively, emotionally, professionally, maybe don't push harder. Maybe get playful. Do something pointless. Try something delightfully daft. You're not wasting time. You're waking up your mischief muscle. And you never know what serious brilliance might be waiting on the other side of a little nonsense. And how do you do it? Well, here are a few ways to test the waters. Switch tools. If you always type, try crayons. If you paint, try collage. If you plan, try improv. Or set a 10-minute nonsense timer. Create something ridiculous with zero outcome required, a poem about your left sock, a sketch of your inbox as a monster, and say yes to something you'd normally dismiss. A silly idea, a new medium, a reversed schedule. Because, here's what I believe, mischief is your creativity reminding you who you really are, before the world told you to be small, to behave, to stop pretending. Creative mischief, you see, is not the opposite of discipline. It's the spark that keeps it alive. Play is where possibility lives. The rules matter, yes, but sometimes the most brilliant things are born the moment we break those rules. So, this week, I invite you to do one delightfully mischievous thing with your creativity. Bring back the daydreamer, the scribbler, the alchemist of what-ifs. Imagine what your inner 8-year-old, or even your outer one if you have children around you, just whispered in your ear. And if you're smiling a little right now, then the mischief has already begun. This has been The Download. I'm Jill Marshall, writer, dreamer, mischief maker. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and say yes to that whisper. Thanks for tuning in to The Download podcast. Feel free to like, comment, and share, and all of that good stuff. And do find us on Facebook, YouTube, and more.